Sekeres Price for Monday, May 27th, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. And if you're looking to stage an event, say a wedding, the wedding specialist here at the Wall can help you out. Email sales@wallcenter.com. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sassett and Switches, conducting things. Big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto.
Applewood Nissan in Surrey has the 2024 Rogue. Drove by one the other day. Boy, that's a good-looking car. Take one for a test drive. You'll think the same. You can lease them at 2.99% for 24 months at Applewood Nissan in Surrey. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today, 1 week later. Have you moved on from the Canucks playoff loss? Yes, it was a week ago, Monday, that they fell to the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7 of their second-round Western Conference Series. And I think, like a lot of Canucks fans, particularly those that were applauding the club as they left the ice that night, it took a very little time for me to sort of move on from that. Yeah, sure, they were up in the series 3-2, two opportunities to close out, played excellent defensive hockey against Connor McDavid, particularly at even strength, but the Oilers were the better team. The Canucks did well to make it to Game 7 of round 2, so I've certainly moved on in that regard, although I think a lot of lessons to be learned from that series, and many of which we'll start delving into and unpacking more as the spring and summer goes along. I voted no. I voted yes.
Yeah, and again, we sort of talked about the house money the Canucks were playing with. That it's it was a fun season, probably just rewards to make it as far as they did. I mean, effectively the fifth last team remaining in the National Hockey. In fact, not even effectively, they were the fifth last team remaining. But that's a nice run for a team that had a lot less expectation on it. So I'll concur and vote yes as well. Although I'm sure there's some out there that still have some lingering hurt feelings that may be directing that ire towards the Oilers in this Star Series. So,
well, I am certainly hearing those fans who said, Game 7, when you've held McDavid in check like that, are you going to get better opportunities? Which brings us to our top story today, brought to you by Mr. Lube, roster building, and Patrick Allvin. And does he have to craft a team that can get over the Edmonton Oilers hurdle? We heard from the Canucks general manager late last week, and it very much sounded like he was still caught between two approaches. They were 3 deep at center ice. He talked about several times during the course of the season how much he liked that arrangement, having the 3 good center icemen. Not that Elias Pettersson lived up to billing in the postseason. But, of course, we know how weak this team was on the wing, how deficient that was, and how that might ultimately have cost them. Of course, if you have the 3 center icemen, you probably have a better antidote to Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, and in the realm of the series we just watched, if Elias Pettersson, if you just throw out the resume and the salary, if he's your third line center, you're probably okay with that sort of production and that sort of thing. Although he shouldn't be regarded in any way, shape, or form as the third line center given his price tag.
Hey, he'll be the 3rd best compensated hockey player this upcoming season with his salary.
Not by cap hit, but by paycheck.
But the actual money in hand. Yeah.
You also just can't throw out the goaltending. Heard Kevin Woodley talking about this, that Archer Shields was a great story, given he's the 3rd stringer and AHL goalie.
Mm-hmm.
It was still below expected, the performance that he gave according to the analytics there. So, is the best antidote for the Oilers simply Thatcher Demko at this point?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the Canucks were that far off with Thatcher Demko and Brock Besser and a performing Elias Pettersson. And I don't mean healthy. Everybody's going to have their hits during the course of a playoff. But if we're seeing at least 8, what was that, 50% Pettersson? Was it 50% of what you'd expect out of Pettersson? Yeah. If it's 80% Pettersson and Thatcher Demko, Matt, I think they win the series. Yeah. I think they do.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's an antidote beyond what they already have. If you need a tire change or tire service, Mr. Lou provides no appointment tire service and sales. Seriously, no appointment. Drop by anytime. All makes and models, even electric vehicles, 16 locations, find yours at mrlube.com.
Have done it many times, dropping by the Arbutus Street location. And in fact, most years even before now, because we're typically traveling on the May long, because the Canucks are typically not playing hockey. We take Carmen's car, we drop by Mr. Lube, we get it all
Everybody's got that same
sorted
idea before a road trip.
right before summer road trip season.
Yes.
So here you go. You're in your window now.
I got an oil change yesterday at
Attaboy.
Mr. Lube
There you
at
go.
Barnett Highway in Coquitlam.
Good. So let's listen to the Patrick Alvin clip from last week when he's asked about his off-season wish list.
We're going to continue to see and a top six winger would be nice. I think we need to add some speed. But again, for us is to meet with my staff here and see what we have in-house. And as I said, I'm sure a lot of players in Abbotsford took big steps here. So we'll continue here over the next couple of weeks and see where what we have in terms of free agency and the players going to stay here or how much cap space we have left.
More on the Abbey players in a second. Alvin would go on to say, three deep at center. That's something we have to discuss, see how the formula works. And then went on and asked, like, what type of hockey are we going to see next season? And I'm of two minds of that, Blake. Number one, good on him for being astute. Good on him for sort of trying to recognize greater trends in the league, in the game, but also, of course, specific to their division and their conference. But I can remember the discussions we were having, my friend, like 10 years ago, when it was like, are the Canucks trying to chase the new model? You remember that?
Yeah, for sure.
Chasing the model.
You always fall victim
to
to
this.
this.
Speed, and then it was size, and it was
I think you just have to have the courage of your own convictions and believe that if we play this style, we're going to win, no matter who we're facing. And to me, that's where speed comes in. Is again, you have to assume that Thatcher Demko's in net with a lot of these things, and you do have to pad yourself a little bit on with safety nets and backups and that sort of thing. But in terms of just who is at the best, what are the Vancouver Canucks? I think with Thatcher Demko, and assuming that they fashion a defense core similar to what they have, I think adding speed in the forward ranks is a really big addition.
If you take a look at their forward depth chart right now for next season, and this is removing all the UFAs, and they actually don't have any RFAs up front, or at least not any daunting RFAs. Linus Karlsson is an RFA. But if you remove Elias Lindholm, Dakota Joshua, Sam Lafferty, and Teddy Bluger, you wind up with a club where Ilya Mikheyev is probably a top six winger. You wind up with a club that Vasily Podkolzin is probably a top 9 winger, where Pius Suter has to move back and play center ice, and where some combination of Arshdeep Bains and Linus Karlsson are fighting for jobs on the wing, not to mention Ratu.
If you don't bring anybody else in.
That's if you're not bringing anybody
but that's not going
else.
to happen.
We anticipate they're going to bring in one or two of that. There's no doubt. But when he talks about making room, or at least allowing for the opportunity of Abbey guys to make the team, is that Podkolzin, Karlsson, Bains, and Ratu in that order?
Outside chance to Lekramaki, I suppose, if he wows in camp. Yeah, but I don't think there's a world in which they suggest that all of those guys are on the team. Like I think their hope, their expectation would be that two of them.
I mean, if you add 2, let's say all you're doing is adding 2 forwards, and of course, folks, the Canucks have work to do on defense as well. They have, but the 4 guys under contract who played any kind of significant amount of time there this year. I mean, Cole McWard played a game, but so Myers, Zadorov, Cole, and Friedman all UFAs to be, or RFAs in Ronic's case. No, but they've got some work to do on defense. But if they only had a couple of guys, then you're absolutely banking on at least 2, if not 3 or 4, because you're going to need some depth.
Well, guys like Lafferty Like, can you not hold your pro scouts accountable enough to find a better version of Sam Lafferty?
Yep.
You know, Sam Lafferty was great at times in the first half, but there was just nothing for 60 games after that.
But getting back to the original point, like I understand why Patrick is a little bit sort of not sure what we're going to do yet, because if you leave Pius Suter on the wing, you're still probably a couple of wingers short. And then it's a question of center ice depth, because then like Nils Aman is your third line center.
Do you think there is a meaningful discussion had with Elias Lindholm, or is Lindholm?
Yeah, I think there's a meaningful discussion had. I just think it's going to be exceedingly difficult. He sounded last week like he was gone, Blake. You know, when you hear things like "I enjoyed my time here," past tense. You know, not to mention there seems to be rumblings that the Boston Bruins, who have wanted to improve at center ice for some time now, after losing Bergeron and Krejci.
But at the same time, if we're reading between
all over that,
if we were reading between lines, I would say the kibitzing between his teammates and him on that topic on the podium led me to believe they've had discussions amongst themselves. Like, dude, what are you doing next year?
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, that's not going to be the majority of the pressure on Lindholm, but you know, it factors in. I think he was welcomed quite gracefully.
Yeah, no, I think so. He was incredible. I mean, Alvin said we don't get through. Don't get to where we get without Elias Lindholm in the playoffs. He damn near got you through Edmonton, playing hard minutes against their sensational center iceman. Elliot Friedman, reporting that the Canucks continue to have interest in Jesperi Kotkaniemi of the Carolina Hurricanes. We've also had the conversation about Martin Necas, who is a restricted free agent. I saw Grady tweeted, and quite interesting, that Necas's contract by AFP Analytics lines up almost identically what AFP Analytics imagines that Ronic is going to get, 7 by 7.4 or 3 times 6.2, or in Ronic's case, 6.1. Are there the seeds here for a potential blockbuster with the Carolina Hurricanes if the Canucks still like Kotkaniemi?
To get both of them in some way, shape, or form.
Wow, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, there's somebody else that
You
needs to go
think
with
Carolina
Ronic.
is going to take some big swings here, though, particularly with the new general manager and Tulski, particularly after banging their head against the playoff, door so many times and not being able to get through to a Stanley Cup final. It's an organization that continues to have pretty good depth, even though they got a bunch of big free agents, some of which we know won't be back. And of course, they had the interest, if Jim Rutherford is to be believed, in Elias Pettersson prior to the deadline this past season.
Necas and Kotkaniemi both have similar slags against them, if you will. Obviously, bigger question marks for Kotkaniemi than Necas, but
consistency in and out. Yeah. When they're good, they're great.
Yeah. There's no one's doubting the toolbox.
Yeah.
Both of them have good skills. Necas has brought it far more consistently, but still leaves you wanting in that category. And Kotkaniemi really needs to find that consistency and the ability. But both are very young. Kotkaniemi is what, 23 now? Is even that?
It's ridiculous because he played in the NHL for so long. Of course, Montreal Canadiens drafted him and brought him to the show. And yeah, he is still wet behind the ears baby. He is 23 years old. Jesperi Kotkaniemi. He's 24 in July. But how many 23-year-olds going on 24 have already played 400 NHL games? That's what he's played.
And obviously he has a lot of attention on him because he was drafted so high. But if he was a 20th draft pick, still a first rounder, but a little bit deeper, he'd probably just be arriving at your doorstep right now as a 23-year-old.
When you see that 43 points in 82 games for Kotkaniemi, not this season, but last season, which includes 18 goals. Do you think there's a lot more offensive ceiling there, or do you think that's about it, that he's a half-point per game player and a good defensive centerman?
I get the feeling that you could dream a bit bigger, a 20-goal, 60-point guy. I think you could dream to that extent. but I don't think he's going to have this explosion to be a point per game down the road, but I think he can probably push a little higher than what he did there.
Yeah, I think that's
but
probably
Necas, I've got a much higher ceiling on. Like
except for he's a little older though.
He is.
Yeah. I mean, he should be a little closer to the player, fully formed player.
He's 25 right now. He'll be 26 in the middle of the season, though. But I mean, he's got a 71-point season under his belt already last year, when everything seemed to go together for the Hurricanes.
And can play in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
Has played about 40 fewer games than Kotkaniemi.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, that speaks to how quickly we were at that draft, if I'm not mistaken, remember? And that was sort of the big shock, or the word had started to trickle. Oh, watch what Montreal does here. It's not going to be what everybody anticipates. And sure enough, they popped on with a big need at center ice too. They popped on
that was Pettersson's draft for Martin Necas.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kotkaniemi was whose draft? Was that Quinn?
Quinn Hughes, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember they passed on
right.
Well, a lot of teams passed on.
Yeah, 2018, third overall pick, Kotkaniemi. The Habs just looked at a big centerman and thought,
size,
yeah, we have a need there.
They went back to it with Slavkovsky too. They love the size.
Yeah. Well, after having so many little mighty mites there over the years in Montreal.
That's true.
And when Kotkaniemi was drafted, there was the notion that he could become like Selke level center defensive two-way guy.
That's what everybody
saw. Still very well get there, right?
Yeah. Everybody saw a 200-foot centerman who, may not be vying for Art Ross trophies, but could well vie for Selke trophies. On Ronic, and Blake and I had a really good debate on this last week, and typically when Blake and I have a really good debate, some of you on Twitter see the clips and line up accordingly.
The full debate is on YouTube.
Right.
So make sure you don't miss any context.
So listener Jamie wondered whether we spent a little bit too much time. He just said flatly, guys, what about the 3 years? Now, I'm not necessarily sure that Philip Ronic and Alan Walsh.
This is according to AFP, by the way, folks.
Will sign a 3-year.
I would be blown away.
Well, I mean, there is some school of thought. What's his name has done it with his clients, Dan Milstein. That get them out before they're 30,
so you can get one more big one.
Take another
big
shot. I mean, I'll just say it straight up. If he's going to do 3 years at $6.1 million, I sign that immediately.
Oh, yesterday
for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that.
Mm-hmm. And then listener Jordan chimed and said, guys, the right-handed defense market is actually more flush than what it usually is. And to some degree, Jordan's right there. I mean, mostly because these guys almost never get to unrestricted free agency.
Good defensive names. They're not the offensive names aren't quite as flush.
Well, Pesce, Montour, Roy, Tanev, plus whomever might be a trade candidate.
Yeah.
So let's say there's two of those.
And Montour's got offensive history, but not so much this year.
Right. So let's say there's two trade candidates on this file, and it's rare they get moved, but usually a couple per off season. Sometimes they're the younger up and coming ones, like the Brock Fabers of the world. So let's say there's a half dozen ones there. Is that enough? Would you feel comfortable saying, okay, we'll move Ronic for forward help, that winger we desperately need, or we'll move Ronic to stay 3 deep at center somehow, some way, and then either go on the market for one of those UFAs or swing another trade for a top pair right shot D?
I mean, do you need to make that trade at the draft though, or can you not wait till July 4th to make that trade?
I don't know.
Because as I've been
what I do know is July 1st or 2nd, those 4 names are going to be gone.
Right. So to me, if you want to try to walk the fine line, walk the narrow pathway here as Patrick Allvin, you take your swings at those 4 guys, see what you come up with by July 2nd, and then determine your next action after that. By the way, you forgot Jalen Chatfield is a right shot defenseman too.
Yeah, and we have all the
but
top.
He's
not a top pair.
Yeah.
Although
I mean, like
I think
Pesce,
you can play him.
Montour, Roy, Tanev have all either played top pair or played top 4. Chatfield's been a third pair guy that has stood out.
Yeah.
Like, it is quite a climb to get Jalen Chatfield on your top pair.
Yeah, he was playing a bit, I think, above Tony DeAngelo at times. For Carolina.
But that's Tony DeAngelo, and of course, Dougie Hamilton was missing there, right?
And we have the projected contracts for the top right-handed defenseman on the screen. Is there any guy that's jumping off the page to you that you think they should be sniffing around down?
Well, I mean, all of those guys, there's several interesting guys for me there. Like Walker's interesting, Carrier's interesting, not to mention the top three guys. I'm just not sure that any of those guys fits beside Quinn Hughes and that I would trust to play top pair right side minutes. Like Ronic's best is better than virtually all of those guys, except maybe Montour's best.
Yeah.
Right? And Pesce, you love him, but he's not going to bring active offensive production to the pair. Several years ago, I would have probably stumped for Pesce in a world where you put the pure defender beside the offensive creative genius.
And pretty much all these guys are much older.
You know, the league has sort of moved on from that style of pair, if you can. I mean, that's what made Vancouver so successful in the first half of the season, was being able to trot out that pair 23, 24 minutes.
That's the beauty of the 3-year deal. If you somehow convince,
oh man,
I mean, you could do both.
So let me ask this then, Blake. They've got him pegged at what, 6.1, 6.2 on a 3-year deal. Would you go to 7?
No, I'd want it to begin with a 6.
Okay, 6.9. No, but serious question here.
Yeah,
like,
nice.
If they're like, guys, if Ronic and his camp are like, no, we're not doing that. You know, is it worth the while for the Canucks to go above and beyond on the short term? He'd still be tradable.
Yep. And within a year or two, still
right.
tradable.
And if he doesn't like it here, or if you're falling out of love with him, you would still have a trade asset there. Again, I'm not sure they'd sign a 3-year deal.
No, I really don't see it.
Philosophically, I'm not sure where the player and the agents have. In full disclosure, we've asked Alan Walsh to come on the program a couple of times this year. Have not heard back on that.
I would be blown away, but I think the answer is yes. On a 3-year 6.9, I could probably wrap my head around that.
Yeah, no, I would overpay on the 3-year deal to get yourself out of the quandary, because him filing for ARB and playing this year on a 1-year deal that's probably in that ballpark anyways, if not higher, and then walking him to unrestricted free agency is not something that would be palatable to me.
And it's really just
sorry, I shouldn't say that. You could do it, but it's the worst case scenario.
It's effectively a 2-year extension is all you're signing, because
exactly.
So
you buy out his final RFA year.
Yeah.
And you overpay for the next 2 years.
And then
in your eyes, overpay. I'm sure he would.
And then what you're doing is you're never shopping the guy, but you're throwing a line over the water for the next 2 years.
You're listening.
You're listening for the next 2.5 years. So
for sure. And because here's the thing, Blake, it's the scarcest commodity out there. Someone may blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be insinuated with that kind of a contract that he would be gettable if you're a team that's desperate and willing to sell the farm.
Just looking at Chatfield guy, I played just over 15 minutes. I mean,
that seems too high.
That's a pure third pair guy. And it was funny because he had a good stretch of hockey here and then started getting walked. Remember that, Blake? We were all shouting his praises.
In the Canadian
and then a couple games in a row where he was just targeted and routinely exploited.
But clearly an education for him. Clearly got better.
Credit to him. He got better. I mean, this was a major junior free agent in the Benning era.
Yeah.
And much better insulation around him in Carolina, too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Great system to be in. Brilliant system to be in.
I think this system here would work for him, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. How big is he?
He's big enough.
Yeah, 6'1", 188. Yeah. Okay. One that got away. We'll get to another that got away in Gustav Forsling as this Eastern Conference final continues.
But I mean, that one you cannot blame. Like that,
I know you've said this in the past. You're going to save it.
Gustav Forsling was years away from being years away. He was Bruno Caboclo.
B, right?
B.
Irfan Ghaffar, our buddy from Rinkwide on the latest Rinkwide episode, and Jeff and Irfan got some plans. Their post-game show is over. They know that, but they got some plans. So you'll see them populating that feed here in the summer. The Canucks tabled an offer for Zadorov, $4.5 million for 4 or 5 years, which was rejected, and understandably so. If I'm Nikita Zadorov, I reject that. I reject that number as well. That offer. Where do you draw the line on Zadorov?
Well, in term, have we 5-year term?
5 by 5. Is that as high as you go?
I go 5.5. I could squeeze that salary up a little bit more.
AFP Adam at 5 times 5.25.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I'm comfortable with that.
We've added some sugar there based on playoff performance.
Yep, and swagger and the fact that he serves as a deterrent back there to some degree, I think.
For sure. And here's the trickier question on him. Do you do him now and commit that cap space and then solve the Ronic and forward matters? Because that's the thing for me that as I've mocked through this with Alvin, looking at what Alvin is having to do this summer, it is a lot riskier to do Zadorov first and then have to go about solving the other matters.
Because of dollar spent or politics?
Well, because of dollar spent.
Hmm.
Love Zadorov. Look, we chronicled our affection for him last week in terms of not just the player he was in Vancouver and the playoff performer he was here in Vancouver, but also about the guy off the ice, what he said, the responsibility he took. That was just an honorable, noble human being.
Yeah,
who we saw here. So really would like to see him back. But I'm also mindful of the fact you've already paid 2 left side defensemen. You've paid Quinn Hughes. You've paid Carson Soucy. The third left side defenseman is more a luxury than a need to do. And so in a perfect world, I'd love to be able to get Ronic done, find some part of the solution up front, and some of the solution is going to have to, I think, come July 1st or afterwards, and then turn around and see, okay, do I have the cap space left to do big?
Here's what I'll tell you on that. If you can get Tyler Myers at the crazy number everyone hopes for,
I think you will.
Then I think you can sign Nikita Zadorov.
Yeah.
Like what's the crazy good number for Tyler? Is it as high as 3.5?
Oh, I think it's less than that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting
it depends on term. I don't know how much longer he wants to play. We talked about this last week, but if I can do a 3-year deal where the number starts with a 2,
oh my gosh, then I feel comfortable signing Nikita Zadorov, because then you're like, I'm thinking of those guys as a package. You only want to spend, what am I going to say here? No more than 8.5, no more than 8.5, 8 million ideally between the two of them. So if you can do that business before you do anything else, I'm fine with that.
Now I see Dollywall continues to carry water for Brendan Dillon and his agent, but I will say this: Brendan Dillon, of course, a local guy. See a fallback option for you if you don't get Zadorov. He's got the size that Tocchet loves, the 6'4", 225. It's a lefty. It's 34. AFP looking at him at 2 by 2.9.
Instead of Ian Cole, basically is what we're saying.
Or as a Zadorov plan B.
Better than Cole, not as good as Zadorov.
He would be your third pair left side guy.
Yeah, I mean he's much older than Zadorov, though. Much,
34.
Like then you've got, I know he's on a different side, but you've got 2 34-year-old defensemen in him and Myers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wild about that.
You would be quite.
And Zadorov's no spring chicken either, even though next to Dillon he is. But number begins with a 3 there pretty quickly as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think you got to make your decision on what those veteran guys are that you're bringing in. What do they bring in the table? How much do they have left? He's 34 in November, by the way. Not you have 34 for Brendan Dillon.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he is at his very best this year, a 20-point defenseman, and that is his best years have been 20 to 22 points.
Oh no!
So
he doesn't have the upside of any of those guys. He was Winnipeg's sixth used. Fifth. No. Did he wind up playing top four?
I don't think if you're planning on bringing back Zadorov, Myers, and Soucy, I don't think you need Brendan Dillon.
Mm-hmm. He was the number 40 used defenseman in Winnipeg this year at 1844.
I know everybody's in love with size.
No power play there.
I know everybody's in love with size, but I think you need more mobility. You've got 3 towers there, potentially, if you bring all 3 of those guys back. I don't think you need another tower. You don't need 4 towers.
Yeah. We spoke yesterday of Patrick Alvin talking about he fit Mikheyev more than Mikheyev filled him. I saw from the Hockey Stat Cards account, top 10 defensive players in these playoffs going into Saturday's game. Quinn Hughes was number 5. Ilya Mikheyev was number 10. And because you're already seeking wingers, because you feel he's a responsible player, I think Patrick Alvin is. I know you said they're not going to buy him out now, and I think that will be a consideration, just depending on how the dollars work. But the more I thought about it, I think when the emotion dies down, the more I think Patrick Alvin is sincere. I think they're going to try and run back Mikheyev next year, just in a lesser role.
And he's sort of a victim of what we thought of Tyler Myers in the middle of his contract. You'd have him on your team. It's just the numbers too extravagant for what he is.
Yeah,
I've got no problem with Ilya Mikheyev being a 3rd or 4th line winger, but not at $4.8 million or whatever he is. Like,
bed you made,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think that if you can trade him with a small amount of retention, a medium amount of retention, I think you're going to need at least medium. I think you can go and replace that player for $3 million.
Okay. Jeremy Colleton and his associate coach Gary Agnew are out in Abbey. As we know, Manny Malhotra is now the new head coach there, the Canucks, with a post. I hope for Colleton's sake that he gets the San Jose job. It would be an awful shame if Jeremy Colleton lost the bird in the hand.
It's just, it was a strange set of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
now he was out of contract.
He was. But you'd think that you'd try to get something announced first before you fully reject.
And the other thing is
like, do you believe that there was a contract offered? That was the original reporting.
No, I think there was a contract offer, but I also think it had that poison pill clause that he couldn't, move on to NHL jobs while under this contract. And I say poison pill because most organizations are not going to stand in the way of personal promotion, elevation in the industry. I was really surprised to read that, actually, that Colleton's contract forbid him from taking NHL jobs.
That's crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah. That seems unreasonable to ask.
Yeah. So I could maybe understand it given where Colleton was, fired by the Blackhawks, a very young coach in his, for 2 years. Okay. I could understand it as a one-off for 2 years based on his specific circumstances and based on the Canucks specific circumstances. But to go to that, back to that,
also the Canucks.
To me, it was almost a contract like, we don't want you back, so we'll offer you this.
Well, that's what I wonder, is that if it was just a contract that, of course, he's going to say no to that, and they might have had Manny Malhotra in their back pocket for some time.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me.
The Department of NHL Player Safety has fined New York Rangers captain and defenseman Jacob Trouba $5,000, the maximum allowable for elbowing Florida's Evan Rodriguez. Former Canuck Kevin Bieksa is getting a lot of heat for his defense of Jacob Trouba. First of all, damn good hockey game last night or yesterday afternoon. Man, the Rangers have played some excellent games this year. And that was one of them. I got home in time to see them go up 4-2. And how about the goal from Lafreniere? I mean, that is a first overall goal.
I've said this
and then
this team has got magic.
The third period was just extraordinary. You knew they were coming back.
They've got magic fairy dust on them. They really do.
Oh, both those teams.
It's the Rangers before and overtime is just I mean, you
Well,
got
and
something
that's-
going.
That's a big one for the Rangers because you blow a 2-goal third period lead, right? And Florida's now lost a couple games in this series that they got to look back and go, man, those were very winnable games. But the elbow on Rodriguez, and first of all, at this stage of the game with Jacob Trouba, it's just happened too many times. He's a dirty player.
Yep.
You just have to wear that now, Jacob Trouba. You're a dirty player. And Bieksa defending him, saying, no, he's leading with his forearm. That's how I hit. That's how a lot of guys in the NHL hit. And I could understand that if it was to deliver a body check up by the boards. But to me, it looks like he reaches and lunges with the elbow while hitting Rodriguez on the side of the head.
He knows he's missing the player. So you can call it an elbow, you can call it a hit to the head, whatever you want to call it. But it was under... To me, it's not a suspendable offense.
But it's a 5-minute penalty.
It's a 5-minute penalty.
Yeah.
It's a major.
Which was not called.
No.
And then Paul Maurice, who is perhaps the best quipper, the best one-lines in hockey. Poor Jacob, poor lad. Pass the hat. What is it? Hope he has got enough.
Hope he can eat.
Yeah.
Hope he can eat. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? Good on Maurice, because that's a great way to message it from a head coach
without griping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're not griping, but you're kind of griping.
Yes. Yeah.
You've let the series supervisor, the Department of Player Safety, the officials on ice know that there's an objection there. You've done so in a lighthearted way that perhaps puts a smile on their face and makes you look less of a whiner in their eyes. And you don't sound wimpy or anything like that. You don't sound like as Connor McDavid went out of his way to sound, remember, after he took the cross checks from Susie.
And by the way, the Oilers seem to be concerned about officiating now all of a sudden.
Oh, wow. How about that? What's the Edmonton media thinking?
Yeah. Never heard a city complain so much about officiating.
Sorry, I don't have the account, but when
the Dallas Stars regular season penalties being like the lowest.
Well, that's it. Is Dallas doesn't commit a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
They have good players who stay away from penalties.
Let's invent some power plays.
We saw it in 2011 with the Canucks. When you rely on your power play that much, you can be had. There are antidotes awaiting you in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm forgetting the account, but I saw it yesterday morning after Sweden defeated Canada that I guess Stockholm got over Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, Marky Mark.
Canada needed a little more Stockholm in that game against Sweden, a little less Saskatchewan.
That's a very good line. Just on a tee, right? Just on a tee.
Specky speck.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on to Messi and the Whitecaps. The big mess at BC Place on Saturday in front of 51,000 paying customers. The Whitecaps not only failed to see Lionel Messi grace their home park, but also failed to win the game or look very good through most of it. There was a late push from the Caps here, but the best case scenario, if Lionel Messi and friends were not coming to town, was a resounding Whitecaps victory. Hopefully make some new fans of the 51,000 who were there, some of whom only to see Messi, and they were unable to do it.
I said it before, and I'll be very clear again. It's a complete, disappointment for the players, obviously. Complete disappointment. But, what are you supposed to do? Not market Lionel Messi? The guy's on your schedule. You're not supposed to market him.
Now, some would say that the Caps went too far and were too aggressive with the ticket pricing and with the structure of seeing this game where he had to buy 4 other games. And that's fair comment. The Caps have to shoulder a little bit of this. For me, they are well down the queue of villains.
Free market system, is it not? Supply and demand. Like, isn't that how we work this?
Well, so for those who said the Caps should have looked at the schedule, looked at the fact this was a one-off on the West Coast, the likely load management spot for Messi, and maybe not stepped into it as much as they did. in retrospect, that is fair. I don't begrudge them for a second for marketing a global superstar of this order. Of course they would. Anybody would. I did CKNW on Friday, and Jill Bennett asked me that question. I said, Jill, if King Charles or Barack Obama said, I'm going to be at your building on this day to do an interview, like, you're telling me you wouldn't market that?
Yeah.
So good on the Caps for giving free tickets to those in attendance
For an additional game.
I think there needed to be another step. I don't think the 50% off food and the voucher for kids under 18 was enough. So I'm glad to see the Whitecaps did some self-examination there and said, not enough. Let's listen to our fans a little bit better and give them a little bit more. I was mightily disappointed in the MLS statement that was put out, saying that it would continue to review measures regarding how clubs report player availability. Quote, Major League Soccer acknowledges fan disappointment when marquee players are unavailable for matches. They continue to talk about Messi as though he is just an ordinary player when he has been given equity in the Miami franchise, when salary cap accommodations were made for Inter Miami, where league sponsors like Apple and Adidas helped foot the bill here. He's supposed to be a league entity, a traveling circus that does well by the league and by the sport, not just by Miami. So I find it very convenient that MLS continues to try and talk about him as though he's an ordinary player, not even naming him. Come on. But the biggest slap in the face is Inter Miami releases a promotional video on Friday featuring Lionel Messi and Suarez promoting the Youth International Cup, which I guess is a youth soccer tournament that was going on there. And oh, by the by, Messi and Suarez both had children participating in that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know Martino said the decision wasn't made till Thursday, but it very much looks like this decision was made some time ago.
And the scheduling.
And it's very tone deaf to have those guys front and center promoting that event, knowing you've disappointed 50,000 people here in Vancouver. Not to mention, have fans now in other cities who have tickets to the Miami game wondering if Lionel Messi and Suarez are going to play there as well.
The ticketing this close to, or the scheduling this close to Copa was scary as well. You know, so
well, Martino said one thing, that Miami coach, he said, look, we don't make lineup decisions 3 weeks in advance. And that's fair comment, coach. Like in terms of notice and everybody being upset about notice, if it is simply a player health matter, and this wasn't simply a player health matter, but there was a knock there. Yeah. A couple days before the game, that is standard procedure.
Mm-hmm.
That part I will grant to some degree.
I think, honestly, the biggest issue for the Vancouver Whitecaps that they are facing right now is the fact they have not scored a regular season goal in open play.
They've been
since late April.
Is that the New York game?
Yeah.
They've been pretty shitty.
So
no doubt about it.
If they want to address issues, I would address that one.
And they have a game in hand here, and they're back at it Wednesday
against a team that I just saw up close and personal in Kansas City, and because I was down in Portland for that game.
Right,
there is not much on that Kansas City roster.
Wow.
And Colorado's no gambit either here. So these next two matches, my goodness, one on the road. They're on the road in Kansas City, but you've got to come away with 3 points there. And then coming home to Colorado, you've got to come away with 3 points there.
Well, Black Kansas City is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Or in the conference.
They have 2 wins all season.
It's too bad because they're going to one of the great venues in MLS. What is it? Children's Mercy Park.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Just incredible venue. So unique too. Just absolutely love.
Not Portland unique. Like, honestly, Portland's a different
is
a gem. Yeah. Portland is.
Well, they're both great for, in fact,
very different reasons.
Well, different reasons, except for the one block of seats that's just massive. That looks like, European basketball behind the hoop, where it's just one stand that seemingly goes on and on and on and on. So, love that venue in Kansas City, but you're absolutely right.
Portland's the Fenway Park of MLS.
Right. Oh,
it's so cool.
Portland's the Fenway Park of life.
Well, yes. Yeah. Keep Portland weird. Yeah. It is a weird city. It
is such a weird city.
It's a weird city. You know, and I mean that affectionately, calling the people weird. The people down there are so unique, and it is not your typical stroll through a downtown core.
No.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who lives there, Lake Oswego.
Yeah.
And his wife works at Nike in Beaverton, and you met him. He was here a few weeks ago, and he was just telling me about life in Portland, and
it's
just how different
something.
it is.
It's something.
So disappointment all around.
Yeah.
For Whitecaps fans, for ticket holders, for those who believe that MLS would hold Inter Miami and Lionel Messi to account and deliver him to all markets. And I would still like to think, although I'm sure Don Garber feels the statement is enough, that Major League Soccer would make amends here with its market in Vancouver. I just don't think MLS Soccer cares much about Canada. The evidence has been there over the years that it is really more attuned to USA Soccer and building the sport in the United States. And oh, by the by, we have 3 Canadian franchises. And look, Vancouver may be the least strategic market for MLS. It's Canada, it's Pacific time zone. And frankly, we already had a rich soccer culture and history. You weren't building it from scratch like you are in a lot of these other markets. Like a lot of these other markets, I would suspect you're explaining rules on the video board, right? Like, whereas in Vancouver, we've had a ticker tape parade for a soccer championship. We've had a club that has been here on the ground.
On national team presence,
and
too.
Support national team presence. Yeah.
Hosted World Cup.
Huge soccer events. Yeah. So in that regard, I can understand if they, cast their eye and say, look, there's a lot of markets that need more help than Vancouver. But there does deserve to be a make good here in Vancouver. And I proposed it last week. I think they got to go in there with their schedule maker, and they got to say, we realize the matrix is that every 3 years, these Eastern teams go and visit the Western teams and vice versa. But we've got some making up to do in Vancouver. Put Miami on the schedule at BC Place next season.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible.
And if that means 4 trips to the West next year for Miami, then I'm sorry to fans in whatever Eastern market sees them twice a year or has the capacity to see them twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting one fewer visit from the Inter Miami squad. I'd like to think that's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, he missed that game versus Chicago, but that's an Eastern Conference foe. They were going to get their makeup.
So he'll be back in Chicago. Right.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario for the league, or at least for Vancouver, would be Messi finishes his 2.5 years here, and Vancouver is the one market he didn't appear in.
Yeah, you
I would hope that there's somebody in the MLS main office, league office, that says, guys, we can't do that. We've got to deliver them to every market over the course of this contract.
Or, hear me out here.
Oh.
Victor Montagliani, just make sure Argentina
plays in Vancouver.
World Cup games in Vancouver.
It's funny. I want to say it was Colin.
Finger on the scale there, Victor.
I want to say Colin in planning sent me a note about this saying, guys, get Victor on the show and ask him about this, calamity. And I replied saying it's really not Victor's purview.
No,
like FIFA, CONCACAF, they have no.
It's a league. No purview.
Not to mention, we know Victor's had a personal matter, loss in the family here recently. So we, but yeah, that honestly, I mean, it's of course not going to be the same 51,000. In fact, there's probably going to be very little crossover from the 51,000 who got the tickets to this game and who can afford to go to
the excitement, though, would be something else.
Oh, yeah. Of course. At least for the city.
Yeah.
And again, nobody is disputing that he has a knock and that he needed some rest.
Especially with Copa coming up.
Totally get that. Especially with league games coming up that are more important. Conference games coming up that are more important. But just him on a plane, juggling a soccer ball on the touchline would have been appreciated, right?
Well, the unfortunate part, too, is they didn't send those 3 guys and still won the game rather easily.
Yes. they might just be a pretty good team.
Yeah.
With or without Messi. We're going to get to your playoff parlay challenge here. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. Each and every day, head there. You'll see a list of different questions, prop bets, get on one side or the other. Nightly winners win gift cards. Round winners win cash. We have high hopes for Blake Price in this round. Bit of a slow start, Blake, but how did we do on Friday? Do we care to report the
No
exact
idea.
number?
Totally forgotten.
Okay.
No.
Oh, not good.
Grady's keeping tabs as well and not good.
Only when he loses.
Okay.
Gosh, so critical. Speaking of slow starts, Dallas has traditionally had that in the playoffs in each of their series. But now they've got traction. They've got a win under their belt now.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go down 0-2 like they did versus Vegas. So I think it's them tonight. Taking the Stars to win on the road.
Great road team, too, on the playoffs so far.
Going with the under. I don't think we're going to get a gaudy score line here. So it's under 5.5. First goal to Dallas. Highest scoring period going to the second after they feel the vibes out there in the first. McDavid assists. It's 1.5, so I'm going under. McDavid has been not that effective in these playoffs, to be quite honest, to his standard at the very least. Miro Heiskanen, total assists. I'll take the over there. That's just one for me. It's a night off for Wyatt Johnson. I'll take him on the under for goals. And Leon Draisaitl the over because he'll get the only Oiler tally. There you go.
That's games.dailyfaceoff.com. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta 50 West Cordova. I saw we put out the tweet earlier today. Just had a blast going to games at Greta this past season. We're there for the first road game of the year in Edmonton. That Saturday. I can remember how packed it was. Of course, the local team won, and the next thing you know, there were people making ground pronouncements about we're going to the playoffs, we're going back to the playoffs, and then sure enough, not only go back to the playoffs, but play Edmonton again, and we were there for all the road games in round 2. So thank you to everybody over at Greta Chantel. You were absolutely a joy to work with. 50 West Cordova. They got the kick-ass arcade. Stop on by Greta Bar. We'll talk to John Shannon here in a moment. Pedersen, Ronic. John's got some information on the NHL awards, which is something that Rick Tocchet was asking about last week. Do I have to show up now that I know I'm the Jack Adams winner?
It's
and of course, Quinn Hughes and some other Canucks may have similar questions.
It sounds like a community theater production this year, as opposed to trying to make it into an Academy Award nominated show.
Yeah, the kids are doing Grease.
Yeah,
down at the high school.
Yeah, yeah.
But John's produced the awards in the past, so he's got pretty good insight there. So we'll talk to John about all things Canucks and a couple of NHL matters. Dwayne Vienneau, the Lions president COO, is going to join as well because the huge announcement today, 50 Cent will be your pregame act for the Lions home opener next month against the Calgary Stampeders at BC Place. Now, the Lions have just finished their first preseason game. They actually play Friday at BC Place against the Edmonton Elks in the preseason finale. Then they start on the road against the Toronto Argonauts. So it's Saturday, June 15th. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff, and 50 Cent will take to the stage at 3 p.m. So you want to get your tickets for that, and they just start at $25. It has turned into a fantastic summertime tradition now here in Vancouver.
Are you a Fitty fan?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. You?
I'm not against Fitty. I haven't listened to much.
Yeah, and
I know the radio songs. That's about it.
Yeah, ditto. Music takes all kinds. I'm bigger on LL than Fitty, but of course LL is a little closer to my generation.
I'm excited that people will be excited, though. I
very much.
I can recognize that this is a big deal.
Oh,
so
for sure. Grady went to 50 Cent the last time he was here at Rogers Arena. When was that, Grady?
Late spring,
and it was packed.
Yeah, it was bumping.
No, I mean, he's got a good catalog. I mean, in the club,
boom.
There was a time where you could not, drive 2 city blocks without hearing In the Club.
No, it's good. It's a big name. It's like you wouldn't shy away from that if that was the halftime act at the Grey Cup.
No,
G-Unit.
Yeah.
That, believe it or not, folks, that was not Fitty. That was Grady. Grady sent.
Grady, can you give us some wanksta now?
Please don't. Please don't.
Ja Rule is a wankster.
So, anyways, we'll have a fantastic conversation with Dwayne Vienneau, not just about 50 Cent and opening day at BC Place, but about what they've got planned all season. Needless to say, this is a hell of a year for the BC Lions. You have the big concert at the home opener. You've got Touchdown Pacific over at Royal Athletic Park in Victoria, which has been a massive success and so well received from people on Vancouver Island. And you've got the CFL Championship game, the Grey Cup, one of the biggest festivals and television properties the country over, coming in November. And while Dwayne doesn't speak to this, I got a really good feeling about this Lions team. It seems like their natural team evolution should peak this year with a home.
I want to see the running game.
Some teams have to force that, right? They have to go on out and the offseason before go out and sign all these free agents. BC has been building towards this and building towards this. I'm a believer in big play VA. The receiver core has been terrific defensively, and the job that Ryan Phillips has done with those guys, and the special teams, of course, have been excellent as well. So I got a really good feeling about this Lions team. You're quite right. They got to be a tougher, better line of scrimmage team that's more able to use the run game, particularly when they go play the cold weather games. But hey, there's a world where you don't need to play cold weather games, where you just win the West and you tell Winnipeg or whomever, you come to our dome in November.
Duck on YouTube. Holy smokes, boys. 50 Cent for the home opener. We're going to get lit.
It'll be lit. Lit. For sure. That's Saturday, June 15th. 3 p.m. for the concert, 4 p.m. for the game. Time now for Bet365 Bets of the Day. The segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner, Sekeres Price. And we saw it in the Canucks series. McDavid. And I think he's playing through something. He's kind of dangerous every second night. So pointless in game 2 again by the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, he forces himself through whatever pain it is to salvage himself.
So I'm on betting Connor props every second game. Plus, you're getting some value on him now. I think he was like 3rd or 4th on the list of anytime goal scorer. That's Connor McDavid. Getting some value. Anytime goal scorer, Connor McDavid in game 3 at plus 155.
I'm going to go back to the inevitability that is Leon Draisaitl. I still think this is value at plus 145 to get a goal for Leon. So I'll go Leon.
Is he the highest on the list?
No, it's Zach Hyman.
Yeah,
but I'll go Leon.
Yeah, that's on your Bet365 Bets of the Day. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, open that account, use code VANBONUS altogether, all one word. John Shannon coming up next.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2024 season, playing to rave reviews. Also some chicanery with a bear and a flag stick.
Not these two that you're watching. If you're on YouTube,
New Bears or New Bear,
we'll reveal that
big reveal coming up here.
Yeah,
tee times for any time during the 2024 season can be booked online, or you follow them at Whistler Golf on social. And if you have a group of 12 or more, you, the organizer, plays for free. For more info to book online, visit whistlergolf.com. Joining us now is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. Our pleasure to welcome John Shannon back to the program. How are you?
Happy wet Monday, boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indeed.
Did you catch the Canucks season-ending media availability last week?
Most of them, yeah. Most of them
Yeah.
I did on Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. What did you make of Pettersson and the juxtaposition with Pettersson, Tocchet, and Alvin?
Well, I'd love to say lost in translation. I'm not sure I buy my own rationale. You know, I mean, hey, when Rick Tocchet says, it's tendonitis, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's okay.
Move on.
Players put through it. That was the one that got me was Rick just said, We all know Rick Tocchet has played through far more difficult injury situations than Elias Pettersson ever has. And that's not a knock at Pettersson. That's just a reality of the way Tocchet played the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Alvin's comments that, hey, we've got to get our players prepared to push through the harder games in the second half and the Stanley Cup playoffs. And John, like, for some, it's scandalous. It's, organization is suing Pettersson. And for others, it's simply, hey, these are the learning lessons that a young team and young players have to go through to figure out what it takes to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, and I just finished listening to the press conference in Winnipeg for Scott Arniel, and all he talked about is talking to the players and how the players are marveling at the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs and players pushing through. And this is the learning curve, Matt. You're absolutely right. The value of these 2 rounds of playoffs for the Canucks is exponential. And that's what I think that this team now has to take advantage of. It is a terribly long, arduous journey to win the Stanley Cup. The Canucks got halfway there, but they learned a lot of lessons, and a lot of those young guys learned lessons. Hopefully, including Pettersson, and it will pay off. Maybe not next year, but it will pay off in the next 2 or 3 years when the pain of losing will be transposed with the celebration of winning.
What do you think of one player revealing injuries and the others choosing not to? Is there anything odd in that? What do you think the ratio normally is on an NHL team of guys that want to talk about their injuries and guys that don't?
I find players much more secretive now overall than ever before. That's where I think that, and listen, Elias Pettersson has always been glib. Maybe he's always been rather honest about everything in his life. And when he sits down, whether it's an interview or whether it's in a scrum. And I also think that might be the part where some is lost in translation, where in Swedish, I think he would say one thing, and when he translated to English, it sounds much more abrupt. So I'm going to give him some leeway on this one when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I think it's also up to the individual. I think that if you want to say, hey, I'm hurt. I mean, here in Toronto, Austin Matthews wouldn't tell anybody that he had a hangnail. Mitch Marner never talked anything about his high ankle sprain. In fact, ripped the media for talking about the high ankle sprain, and it didn't put him in a very good stead with a lot of people. But from that perspective, I don't think anything after the fact that Pettersson said was a problem for me, and I quite frankly, I don't think it was a problem for the organization either.
Should they have rested him though? Should they have rested him earlier in the season and make sure that he was ready for the playoffs?
You know what? I'm not in the medical room. I'm not in the dressing room. I'm not in the coach's room. If Rick Tocchet turns to the doctor and says, "Can he hurt himself anymore?" And the doctor says no, and Tocchet says, "Well, we've got to be able to play at this level during the stretch run for the regular season, and we've got to be prepared for this in the playoffs, because both of you guys know everybody plays hurt in the playoffs. Everybody has a bruise, a bang, everybody's limping around." Then perhaps that was a lesson they were trying to teach Pettersson, fair or unfair, but that was something that he has to push through these scenarios if in fact he wasn't going to hurt himself anymore.
The other bit from the wrap-up year-end presser was Patrick Allvin, John, and his opening remarks basically saying not satisfied. We didn't even get halfway there, and really setting an aspirational course for the franchise about being a contender and winning a Stanley Cup that we haven't really heard put in those specific terms from a Canucks executive for some time.
I love it. I mean, my goodness gracious, that there was almost refreshing to hear. That we hear so much, and we hear not just in Vancouver, but all through professional sports. We always hear the double speak when a team gets eliminated. Well, they were pretty good over there. We did our best, or lessons learned. For someone to say, no, our goal is to win the Stanley Cup and we're going to get there. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I don't think Patrick's alone in this one. I think there's probably long discussions with Jimmy about exactly what to say and how to say it to a market that really, I think they really feel that there's a championship on the way at some point, and that's important. And I don't think you settle for being second. You don't settle for being second. You want to win. You want your name on the cup. And for the Canucks management to say that, I think that's important.
Philip Ronic, John. What to do here with Philip Ronic? An RFA with arb rights, 1 year away from free agency, a marvelous first half, a poor second half, a uncomfortable final press availability here. And of course, the scarcest commodity out there, the right shot top pair defenseman. What do you think they'll do with Philip Ronic? And do you think the second half could have them moving on from the player?
I don't think so, but the body of work certainly was much more impressive before Christmas than after. At the same time, I think that what you have already mentioned, Matt, there are so many positive attributes about him. And to me, it's price point. What's the price point? If Alan Walsh thinks he can get him $8 or $9 million, then I suspect that it'll be 1 year and see what happens at the trade deadline if the Canucks aren't competing for a top position. But from that perspective, I think it's just too early to tell. I mean, I think that what does this team do with the draft? This group of managers in Allvin and Rutherford and Ryan Johnson and everybody involved, they're not afraid to make moves. So if there's something that can help the Canucks both on the ice and financially that includes moving Ronic, then maybe they have to consider it. But I just think it's too early, particularly with what's going on at the draft and what the Canucks do and don't have at the draft at this point, right?
In these scenarios, I think the agent probably tends to believe in the player and the ability to back up.
And if talent, he believes in him better than anybody else.
But there's a lot of risk, because if he starts this season like he finished the season, my goodness, they start to lose a lot of their traction from 1 year previous.
Yeah. Listen, you guys watched the team much closer than I did. Did he have a bad second half? Well, he wasn't as good. He could play on my team any day. I'd have him on my team. And I don't, I like surly guys. Surly guys are good. Surly guys can play the game at a certain level, because I think, just like we talked about management saying they want to win the cup, I think that when you get surly guys, they understand the goal. I mean, I'm not sure that Quinn Hughes has the year he has without Phil Ronic. Period. And I think that's an important measure, and that's something I think the Canucks are considering and have to consider.
The truth is, he just stopped shooting the puck, like almost entirely.
Maybe he was told to. Maybe he was told to.
No, because he was hurt. Because and he didn't want to disclose the injury, but everybody saw him wrapping up the one arm before games, or having to unwrap it to levels that they had not much seen with hockey players. So
and listen, maybe that's the injuries. That's the part of this world that we on our side don't understand what happens behind the curtain. and it's one thing to have opinions, but you have to be respectful of situations with injuries that are such a factor. And I know it's frustrating not to find out after the season's over who was hurt, how badly they were hurt, but that's now a modern day issue for everyone. And there's a scenario there where Ronic, whether it's rehab or surgery or whatever, how severe it is, and perhaps the team knows it better than we do.
Tocchet was wondering this last week when he met with us. Does he have to go to the award show? No, good for him. He lives in Vegas, so it'd be a short commute if he does. But still haven't heard plans for what the NHL award show is going to look like. John, what are you hearing on that accord? Because of course we do anticipate that Quinn Hughes will be there and likely a Norris Trophy winner.
Yeah. It obviously scaled down from what we have seen in the past because I think there's a lot more attention being given to how the draft actually exists at the Sphere. So from that perspective, the award show is taking second fiddle to what's going to be the first sporting event within the venue. It's not at the Sphere. The awards aren't at the Sphere within, I think, 48 hours before. But from that perspective, it's funny. The award show is having executive produced the award show a couple times. It's a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. It's a pain because you can't please everybody. Entertainment's hard to find. Speeches are never good. It's difficult to do. But it generates in Canada 500,000 viewers just like that. 500,000 viewers in the middle of June. And so the league, I think, in many ways is twixt in between of how to invest money in the award show without receiving criticism and yet delivering a good audience to its TV partner. So I think they're scaling it down. They're going to have the 5 awards that are key. They're not going to have all the other awards. I assume they're going to have the award winners there, the ones that already have won, for instance. If Sasha Barkov will be there for winning the Selke Trophy. But it seems to be that it's not an afterthought, but it's just not getting the TLC that it once did.
I've been on this planet for a long time. I've watched it 0 times in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
again, it's for the hardcore hockey fan. It is for the hardcore hockey fan. There's no question about it. And I like I'm old enough that I remember we did an award. The awards were given out at a luncheon between games 3 and 4 of the Islanders Flyers series in 1980. A luncheon. And then it grew into something bigger and has it did have some success. But again, I'm not sure how much success it has for the money that they want to invest in it.
A lot of your egg salad sandwich. Here's some cut carrots, potato chips.
When you call it a luncheon, salad, it's got to have.
It was a high-end luncheon, boys. I think it was high-end prime rib. Prime rib.
Prime rib. Oh, okay. Yeah. Electric knife and everything, the whole thing. A lot of people.
You're showing your age there when you're talking about.
My dad still loves his electric knife. Oh my God, loves it. A lot of rumors connecting the Canucks to the Hurricanes, whether it's for Kotkaniemi or Necas or who are they going to be talking to? With the transfer of Don Waddell, it appears, to the Columbus organization. Is it going to be General Manager Artulski full time? Do you think? Or you think so?
Everybody's pointing fingers that way. That at a certain point, the interim tag will be removed. The fascination with Carolina is it is a different animal completely. Always has been since Tom Dundon bought it. His role is in everything. He's very active in what the organization does, asks a lot of questions. And Don Waddell did a magnificent job starting on the business side first and then moving to the hockey side when they got rid of Ron Francis. And Don Waddell, I'm sure, managed Tom Dundon as effectively, as efficiently as anybody could have in that scenario, knowing full well that Tom Dunn is a hands-on guy. And I obviously both felt it was time that things changed. And it does look like Don Waddell's pointed towards, the interior of the state of Ohio for his next job. So from that perspective, Eric Tulsky has always been at the top of the list of people other than Waddell in the hockey ops group. And we'll just have to see if they would remove the interim tag before or after the draft.
Lastly, for me, John, what did you make of Manny Malhotra's work with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and what do you think of him as the Canucks American Hockey League head coach hire?
You know what? I'm happy for Manny. I think that he obviously enjoyed his time as a player and in the organization in Vancouver. I think Vancouver's always had a special spot for Manny. I would tell you that he did a good job in Sheldon Keefe's system, but you were never allowed to talk to Manny Malhotra in Toronto. So it's difficult to measure who did what and how in the realm of what assistant coaches did for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Manny coming home, I think, is a good thing. We all know the kind of player he was for the Canucks, and hopefully he can translate that for what goes on in Abbotsford.
Marvelous stuff, John. Thank you for this, my friend. And we know you ride with us all summer, so looking forward to next week already.
Cheers, boys.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian-owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Everybody knows about the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis.
But what's less known is that the stigma around addiction makes it harder to ask for help.
And that's got to stop. Addiction is a complex health condition, not a choice.
Right, and that means people shouldn't have to face judgment at work or from their loved ones or fear the law.
But shame or stigma can cause a person to hide their drug use or use alone.
And we don't want that. People shouldn't be afraid to reach out.
There are supports available, and it helps to know where to start.
The government of BC is partnering with organizations like Sekeres Price to help extend this message throughout our province.
If you or someone you know is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. GolfNorthlands.com. Our next guest has won a Grammy and Emmy. Oh, no, that's the headliner.
Wrong guy.
Yeah.
That's the host for the guest that has done all that. Yes.
Dwayne Vienneau, BC Lions president, CEO, joins us in the Nation Network studio, fresh off the announcement. 50 Cent for the the home opener, Saturday, June 15th against the Calgary Stampeders at BC Place. First of all, welcome to the studio. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Glad to be back.
Secondly, wow, another big act.
We are so pumped. It's just the reaction so far has been really good, and we just feel it's Amar's done this now. This is the third year since he's purchased the team, and we feel it's the best one yet. And nothing against the previous two, but the vibe's pretty good out there right now.
It's becoming like a tradition.
Absolutely.
In Vancouver and for sports fans.
Take us behind the curtain. Like, how do you go about, like, that's a different sphere. You guys know how to find football players. You have an agency that goes out and headhunts for this for you? Because I don't think you're dialing Fitty's cell phone to ask him.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
First off, I'll tell you that this is Amar's baby. Like, he looks after this. He keeps it very, very close to his chest. It's something from the minute he bought the team off of Braley's estate. This was something he wanted to do. He didn't want to. The premise of this wasn't a halftime show. It was an additional concert. So that's why it happens before the game. It's not about the entertainment, so to speak, of the game. It's about giving something back to the fans and the community and the whole Lower Mainland. And he keeps it close. He keeps it tight. He doesn't want any leaks. And I kid you not, I didn't find out who our actual artist was, I think, until last Friday. And then it's time to activate and then go. And we have a small group of our staff that are working around the clock and getting ready for the announcement.
You guys have done such a good job with this that, to me, it has almost the same sort of cachet as finding out about the Grey Cup halftime act. It has the same. You expect the same level of artist almost now.
Absolutely, and that's coming soon too.
Yes,
we're going to be announcing the halftime artist for Grey Cup pretty soon as well, and so that's great. And it's never. I don't think it's ever been done this early. So we're gonna have some. We're gonna have some back-to-back good announcements here.
You're months in advance, aren't you? I'm accustomed to that more around regular season time.
Yeah,
mid-season.
Yeah, we'll be. I honestly, I don't know what the actual timing is, to be honest with you, but I cannot remember announcing a halftime show before the season.
And it sounds like you guys are giddy proud about that one too. Just
100%.
Yeah.
You know, if you get these things out early, it just helps the whole process.
Sure does.
And 50 Cent, you know, we probably could have went, you know, late last week maybe, but you know, it was just the right timing and getting it out, and we have 3 weeks to sell this against for that home opener, and it's so far the buzz is great.
And nice touch by Coach Campbell. Stop practice, gather the players together there in Kamloops, through to the sound system at Hillside Stadium. Boys, that's the halftime act. Seems the players are
halftime.
Pre-show.
That's the pregame act. Seems like the players approved.
Yeah. They we sort of had a feeling they would like the artist, and when we talked to Rick on the weekend about doing this, he said absolutely, but he didn't know who the artist was.
So even coaches kept out.
Everybody was out, and again, I said we had a small group of staff that were in the know, and a couple of them were in Kamloops with the team, and they flipped the old switch on the soundtrack.
We've always said this is an event town. If you create an event, people show up, and it didn't quite go off as the Whitecaps would have planned, but the Messi game was going to be an example of that. What's the goal here for an opening day crowd?
Well, I hate to jinx myself, but we want to do better than we've done in the last couple
of years.
Which is
what? Remind us.
We've always been around the 33 and a half range in the last two times around here. One Republic in 22 and last year with LL Cool J. So, you know, we want a 4 in there.
Yeah.
I'll just you know, that would be a good number for us. And all indications right now, things are going well. Like I said, sales are going very strong, and the upper bowl is now open which we have announced just earlier this morning. Shortly, I think within an hour of the announcement of 50 Cent. So that's always a trigger too. When people hear that we've opened up the upper bowl, they know, okay, this to your point, it's an event. Now it's more than the normal. We're up, we're open. It's going to be a lot of people there.
And are you opening it because of that early reaction? Like the first
100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now the last two we've opened up, but it didn't happen within an hour.
Right.
Yes. So it's just a sign the vibe is good.
Yeah, no, upper bowl signifies event.
It's
it's a straight line from one to the other. Now, Dwayne, my group was lucky enough to be on the field in front of the stage last year for LL Cool J, much to my girlfriend's great delight and joy. Will you be joining us this year? Will you be cutting a rug with us to 50?
Absolutely.
In front of the stage?
I'll come just because you just called me out. I'll do it. But we are doing the same thing. We'll have those tickets available for people to go. Field access, and it goes to the seasons first. The season seat holders get the first opportunity to do that, and then we open it up. And I think our number is about 1,000 were allowed down there, and we'll sell. It went very quickly last year.
Yeah. We actually met a couple of Sekeres Price listeners on the field as we were enjoying LL. Tell people how they can get the tickets, not just to this game, but season tickets and Grey Cup tickets.
Yeah. So the best, season seats, it's probably best to call our office and talk to one of our sales reps, but all games is Ticketmaster.ca, and you can get through there as well.
Prices start at $25.
Yeah, so prices are as low as $25. It's pretty reasonable. I don't think when 50 Cent came through, he was just here, last September.
Rings a bell, yes.
Last September, he
I was
sold
at
out.
it.
He sold
Very
out.
great, yeah.
Sold out Rogers, and I'm pretty sure the tickets were a little bit more than 25.
I
bucks
was
at the
going to
time.
say,
Yeah.
Yes, they were.
concert
Yeah.
tickets tend to go.
I haven't done any research, but I have a feeling.
Mhm.
You do have 8 other of these games to sell, not to mention a Grey Cup as well. What
Not
should
to mention the West Final.
Yes, there's that too.
Absolutely.
There's
We want
too.
that one bad. Yeah.
Any new wrinkles people should know about? It was a great year last year. Your promotions just went through the roof, and it was a good sizzle all year long. But what should we expect?
I'll tell you that people like myself that are in the game of sports and marketing and sports, we always try to do something new all the time, where we think it always has to be new. But when something works, you got to stick with it. So there's a couple things last year that really worked. We did the watermelon smash game, and that was a huge success, and it was a simple concept. It was, don't hate the fans, the opposing team, embrace them. And that's sort of a spin-off of Grey Cup, right? Like all the fans party together, if you will.
Right.
And so if you guys remember, I think I was even here promoting it. It was supposed to be like, I would say, imagine going to a wedding and there would be, are you on that side of the table or on this side of the table when you're going to this tailgate? We ended up blending it all together, and the riders brought a bunch of people. We had all these games. It was a massive, massive hit. So we're doing that again in July. But your point about this is an event town, we truly want to make every game an event. And that's really what we work hard to do. We want our fans to come in pre-game, during the game, leave the game, no matter what the result is on the field, feeling like they were entertained, had a great time. And that's really sort of our goal.
$5 bevies on the Plaza again.
That $5 price point is still available.
Wow, that's great stuff. And
cheapest drink in town.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't want to correct him because it could be 8 games if they host a playoff game, but of course, one of those games is back
true.
to Royal Athletic
Arizona
Park in
Missions.
Victoria,
Yeah.
which is already sold
Right.
out, Dwayne, and you guys had to add more seats to that one.
Yeah, that thing is just taken off. It's tremendous, really. So if you don't know anything about Royal Athletic Park, it's essentially has about 3,000 seats. It's mainly used for baseball, and we're converting it into a CFL football stadium, and that's really part of the charm, right? We're up to 14,500 sold. We have every square inch of space sold that we possibly can.
Right.
Yeah.
We about a week ago, we even announced we're creating an adjacent outdoor tailgate party to it. That's a stone's throw away. You'll be able to hear the noise. You'll be able to smell the popcorn, if you will, but we'll have a large screen out there so fans can actually come and
Absorb the vibe.
but watch it on a screen.
Yeah.
And it's about, at the end of the day, it's really, really exciting. I'll tell you a quick story. Obviously we're hosting Grey Cup this year, and that's always a tremendous thing as well. But I think Amar is probably more excited about the Touchdown Pacific than Grey Cup right now. It's his hometown,
Right, of course.
It's an opportunity to go. We have a lot of season seat holders and a lot of fans that come over every single game. So it's really outreaching to the island.
I was going to ask, what is the breakdown? Because Blake and I have been doing the show for 13 years, and forever, one of the through threads was Lions fans on the island screaming at us, tell them to give us more afternoon games because we want to be able to get there and back on the fairway. And of course, you guys have done a great job of that, including this year with the number of 4 p.m. starts on Saturday. So of the 14,000, how much is that on the island? And do you have Lower Mainland fans who are
Going the other way?
So yeah. So it's I don't have the exact breakdown on me, but I'll give you a rough idea. So our a lot of season seat holders, had the ability to keep their tickets. So if they wanted it, they could. If they didn't want it, we would give them a credit somewhere else, and just in case they couldn't make it over. But we had a high percentage decide that they wanted it.
Great.
And then locally, we sold. We could have kept selling. To be honest, every single day, people want tickets, and then. It is a Touchdown Pacific game. It's under that brand of Touchdown Pacific or Touchdown Atlantic that used to be. And so we have people from every single province that have bought tickets that are coming to that game.
Terrific.
I know you guys are a business. You're not dedicated to philanthropy. You want to make money, and you can only build so many seats on these temporary spots. But man, does it give you guys good buzz? Does it the charm? The TV show looks great too for those like. Gosh, are you tempted to just take that thing on the road and go to Kamloops and Kelowna? And I mean, I know it's a tough thing to pull off, but my goodness, do you guys get a lot of good feedback about it?
Yeah, it's one of our core strategies really is to, we're not the Vancouver Lions.
Right.
We talk about that all the time. We are the BC Lions. We do our camp in Kamloops, and we're now taking a regular season game to Victoria. We want to do things in other major markets throughout the province, and it's important to us. So I could see us doing something with a preseason game in the, sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And it's just a core strategy, the event-based strategy, reaching out to the province is a strategy, really doing things for the community and the youth and promoting and creating, getting kids to be fans early and continue on throughout their days. And as we all know, that has been a challenge in the past CFL.
Yeah.
Is some of the fans just got too old. And so that's you go to games now and you don't see that. Our fan base is young and dynamic and having fun.
Yeah. I love the weekend Saturday 4 p.m. kickoffs, which you have for the most part through the summer. There's one Thursday game in there. Everybody has to take a turn on Thursday, and then the Friday 7 p.m. games backlogged after Labor Day in the fall. What do you make of the schedule this year? Is it going to work for you as a ticket selling enterprise?
Yeah, we like the schedule. And you brought up that point. One of the things that the league did last year was, and we all support, all 9 teams supported, is there's a game on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah,
and that only leaves 3 days without football in the week. And so it's a big strategy. I think you'll see our TV numbers went up, and it's just more consistent programming. And so we all have a Thursday game.
Yep.
It's hard. There's a few markets that
prefer it actually, but yeah.
prefer it. But we really like this one because it's at the beginning of the Canada Day weekend, and it's a Thursday night.
People are already in long weekend mode anyway.
Right.
And it's a Thursday. That's a Friday if I've ever heard it.
Right.
In this town,
that is a Friday.
That's Thursday, June 27th against the Edmonton Elks. Their Sunday game is August 18th, the big rematch against Winnipeg here at BC Place, which is a 4 p.m. Kickoff. How are Grey Cup tickets going?
Really good. So we go on sale with Grey Cup on June the 4th. We've been doing some pre-sales.
That's single tickets.
Yeah. So
because season ticket holders are already bought in, right?
Yeah. So season seat holders and the other CFL teams had a pre-sale, and some partners had pre-sales, and but all indications as well as things are going well. And
it's not crazy to dream sell out there, is it?
Oh no. Got to dream big.
Yeah.
We have a big stadium, and no, we want to sell out. I can tell you that things are going very, very well, and we're looking forward to that one getting on sale.
And it's also not too crazy to dream the home team in the game and lifting the trophy for the first time in 13 years, because we all remember that evening.
It's a special.
It's
special if it happens, and obviously, if Rick Campbell was here, I'm sure you've asked him that question. He would say, if because Grey Cup's in Vancouver, is there extra pressure to be there?
Yeah.
And he'll tell you it's pressure to be there all the time.
Fair.
Our football ops and our coaching staff, I don't feel they feel any extra pressure. They want to be there every year.
Yeah.
And we want to get past that West final and get into that game.
Yeah. I like the evolution of the club, though. It seems like it's building and ready to peak this year with the home Grey Cup. It's this Friday, folks, May 31st, 7 p.m. against the Edmonton Elks in the second of 2 preseason games for the Lions. And most of the big names will play this game because they didn't make the trip to Calgary as Coach Campbell and his charges set the roster. And then June 15th, the home opener against the Calgary Stampeders. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff, so 50 goes on at what? Like
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock?
So there's an hour game concert. He'll be on the stage at 3, and then we're opening up our outdoor backyard party at 10:30 in the morning.
Oh wow,
10:30. Yeah,
after it.
When you have all those fans, you got to get them in early.
I guess
mimosas. Is there mimosas at 10:30? And then
I know there's beer for sure, but I'll check on the
You
mimosas.
should have the mimosas
Yeah,
for the first 2
let us
hours.
know.
We've had mimosas in the past, so I'll check on
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
And of course, the season opener is in Toronto, June 9th, a 4:00 start for us against the Argonauts. We're looking forward to all of this, Dwayne. Thanks for coming on in.
Yeah, thanks
Appreciate
for having
the
me.
time.
Appreciate the support.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.